17, verses 15, and then verse 22 through 18:1. And we're looking at Paul's ministry in Athens. Athens was the intellectual capital of the world, and it was also known as a prominent cultural center for philosophy, art, and literature. I want to pick it up actually in the verses that aren't in today's reading, Acts chapter 17, reading verses 16 through 21, just to kind of set the context for what's happening in Athens. It says this: "While Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he grew exasperated at the sight of the city full of idols. So he debated in the synagogue with the Jews and with the worshippers, and daily in the public square with whoever happened to be there. Even some of the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers engaged him in discussion. Some asked, 'What is this scavenger trying to say?' Others said, 'He sounds like a promoter of foreign deities,' because he was preaching about Jesus and resurrection. They took him and led him to the Areopagus and said, 'May we learn what this new teaching is that you speak of? For you bring some strange notions to our ears. We should like to know what these things mean.' Now all the Athenians, as well as the foreigners residing there, used their time for nothing else but telling or hearing something new." So Paul is invited to the Areopagus, also known as Mars Hill, a very prominent cultural center for education, philosophy, and religion. And when Paul gets there, he begins to preach to them, but he begins where they are. These are people all over the map religiously, worshiping various gods and various traditions and all kinds of stuff. So Paul begins by talking to them about philosophy and religion, and he even quotes some of the pagan writings when he does so. But then he begins to transition over and preach to them about the one true God who created all things and is near to us. And he urges them to turn from idolatry to the one true God. But then he begins to preach to them about Jesus and the resurrection. And that's when things kind of go south. They begin to ridicule him because he's talking about somebody being raised from the dead. And the thing just kind of blows up. It's like it all collapses. Still, there are some who believe, and a couple of them, Dionysius, the Areopagite, who obviously had some position there at the Areopagus, and a woman named Damaris and some others continued to follow Paul. It raises the question, how do we evaluate our own efforts at evangelizing? You know, it's easy to feel like we're failures if things don't go well. If people are making fun of us, or even if they get angry with us, or the reactions are negative, we somehow feel that we've failed or we did something wrong. We shouldn't feel that way. The important thing is that we're faithful to bring the message to other people. It's a good idea if we can find common ground to start with, just like Paul did, and then begin to talk to them about Jesus. But ultimately, it's up to the people that we're speaking to decide, to choose for themselves whether or not they're going to receive our message or not. Every person that's ever preached the gospel has faced opposition, and it hasn't always gone well. Jesus experienced that. Paul experienced that. We still experience it today. So it's not any different for us than it was for them. And in fact, you know what? It's probably a sign that we're doing something right. So don't be afraid of negative reactions. Instead, give them to God in prayer and continue to be a faithful witness for Christ. In time, our efforts will bear fruit for eternal life that will bring great joy both for us and for those who hear us.